Welcome, everyone. Welcome. A very, very warm welcome to you on this very, very warm day. Thank you so much for coming to tonight's very special event, the Tasmanian Dilemma. Should I stay or should I go? As a reflection of this institution's recognition of the deep history and culture of this island, the university wishes to acknowledge the Muwinina people, the traditional owners and custodians of the land upon which this campus was built, and pay respect to elders past and present. So tonight we are thrilled to welcome 4 young and distinguished University of Tasmania alumni to take part in this event. And I'd like to thank you all for coming along tonight. I believe there are around 350 to 400 people here. And a special welcome also to those of you who couldn't make this event in person and are watching us via our live stream account. And we are recording tonight's event, so you'll be able to watch it via the university's live stream page forever. They stay up there forever. I'm Louise Grimmer, I'm a proud University of Tasmania alumna. I graduated in 2015 with a PhD in marketing from the university, and I now have my dream job working here in the Tasmanian School of Business and Economics as a lecturer in marketing and a researcher in retail. And because I'm a graduate of the university, I'm also part of a global community of around 110,000 people, many of you here in this room, who live and work in more than 120 countries around the world. It's my great privilege to be the facilitator for tonight's event, which is presented by the University of Tasmania's alumni and supported by the Department of State Growth. And we're very grateful for the support from the department. So our focus tonight is on young people, and in particular the 4 amazing young people sitting here who are all doing the most incredibly interesting, diverse and inspiring things. They all come from Tasmania and they all studied here at the university. And tonight we want to explore their affinity and connection with our island. We'll hear from them about their experiences in Tasmania and how growing up here and studying here has shaped who they've become and how they've gone and what they've gone on to do in their professional lives. And we'll tease out some of the thinking around their decision to stay, to leave, and in some cases to come back to Tasmania. And I should mention, for those of you who want to tweet about tonight's event, we have a hashtag and it is TasDilemma, 1 L, 2 M's. I had to look it up. So I invite you all to reflect on your own experience of living here in Tasmania. Many of you have grown up here, but I would hazard a guess that a number of you, like me, are not originally from Tasmania, but have chosen to make it your home. The Tasmania of 1996, when I first moved here, is a very, very different place from the Tasmania of 2017. There's been a significant amount of change over a relatively short period of time. And while there are now abundant opportunities here, at the same time, I think we can all acknowledge that we still have some challenges to address and to overcome. And that tension that exists between opportunity and challenge was part of the thinking behind tonight's topic, where we want to ask the questions: what do we love about Tasmania? What are the special things that attract people to stay in Tasmania and in many cases to move back here? And on the flip side, what is it that tempts or even forces young people in particular to move away? So the format tonight is that I'm going to briefly introduce our panellists and then ask them a couple of questions, and then we'll hand over to you for audience questions. And we aim to finish about 7:30. Can I ask you all to set your mobile phones on silent if you haven't already done so? And I've been asked to say that in the event of an emergency, please take instructions from the advancement team who are here tonight, and they're situated near the exits. Hello. Yep. Okay. Okay. So now to introduce you to our panel. And once you've heard what these amazing young people have been doing since they graduated from the university, and all of this is in a relatively short period of time, I think you may well wonder what on earth you've been doing with your life, because I certainly wonder myself. About myself, not about you. Okay, so first up on our panel we have Zoe Edwards. Zoe is the media director at GetUp. She is charged with telling the story of the organisation and its 1 million members. Zoe is from the Northwest Coast and she graduated from the university in 2007 with a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Economics. And this is a photo from the day of Zoe's graduation. Zoe has an array of radio, digital and television news experience. She spent 8 years in various reporting and producing roles, and many of you would recognise her from one of her previous roles, which was on ABC News in Hobart. Zoe also worked on ABC's flagship political television program Insiders and the national breakfast television program News Breakfast. Zoe was the Young Journalist of the Year in 2010. Before joining GetUp, Zoe piloted the Climate Media Centre, a not-for-profit PR hub set up to help everyday Australians tell their story about climate change in the mainstream media. Can we welcome Zoe? Next up is Fraser Johnson. Fraser has always had a curiosity for science and nature, strengthened by exploring Tasmania's wild landscapes with his friends and family as a child. It wasn't until he moved overseas in his 20s that he decided that his curiosity about the world was something that he wanted to turn into a career. Returning to Tasmania in 2011 to formally study science and journalism, he graduated from the university with a Bachelor of Science in 2013 and a Bachelor of Arts with honours in 2014. Fraser taught himself filmmaking by volunteering on the sets of short films and practising photography in his spare time. And in 2015, he started Crow's Nest Media with Andrew Terrell. Crow's Nest is a Hobart-based production company that provides media and comm support for scientific research and scientific institutions. Fraser has worked on blue-chip natural history programs including the BAFTA and Emmy-nominated Attenborough's Light on Earth and the upcoming National Geographic series One Weird Rock. Welcome, Fraser. Next we have Dr. Amy Jackett. Now, Amy is what we affectionately call, in the academic trade, an academic overachiever. So Amy has 2 graduation slides tonight, and this is the first one from her undergraduate degree. Amy is the curator of Australia's newest major art award, the Hadley's Art Prize for Contemporary Australian Landscape Art. Amy grew up in Tasmania and completed a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Fine Arts with first-class honours in 2009. Here is Amy's second slide. In 2013, Amy graduated with a PhD in art theory. Now, the handsome man in the slide is Amy's husband, Chris, and Amy tells me that the university very kindly allowed Amy and Chris to graduate with their PhDs on the same day, even though one was in arts and one was in science, and never the twain shall meet. So now we have an academic overachieving couple. After graduation, Amy moved to the tropics to take up the position of lecturer in visual arts at Charles Darwin University in Darwin, and Amy is an honorary fellow at CDU. In 2015, Amy co-curated the exhibition Counting Timelines for the Darwin Festival, and last year she was involved in another Darwin Festival event, this time as a writer and artist, in an exhibition called Waiting for Water, which was shown in Darwin, Alice Springs and Lake St Clair in Tasmania. Welcome, Amy. And now, Luke McGregor. Luke graduated from the university in 2007 with a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Economics. And this was the same year he started his stand-up comedy career here in Tasmania, in the uni bar, I think, Luke, when he entered the Raw Comedy competition after one of the contestants didn't show up. Thank goodness for us. In 2008, he was selected as a Raw Comedy national finalist. In 2013, Luke's first solo Melbourne International Comedy Festival show, My Soulmate is Out of My League, played to sold-out rooms and won the prestigious Best Newcomer Award. He then appeared in a wide range of television programs, including It's a Date, Legally Brown and Spicks and Specks. Luke also appeared in season 1 and 2 of the very popular series Utopia with Rob Sitch and Celia Piccola. In 2016, Luke presented Lukewarm Sex on the ABC, a show that took an embarrassingly honest and humorous look at all things sex. He then teamed up with Celia again to write and star in the hit television series Rosehaven on the ABC. And many of you would currently be enjoying season 2 of Rosehaven and playing that game of trying to work out where particular scenes are filmed and if you recognise anyone in the show. And Luke is now a regular on our TV screens and one of Australia's favourite comedians. Welcome, Luke. I was going to say, can I ask you to give a very warm welcome to our 4 panellists, but... Okay.
You mentioned lukewarm sex, and as of that photo being taken, I still had not had sex. So, a little fact for you.
Do you know what I just realised? I was meant to put it onto the logo for the Department of State Growth. I think we might... Should we just leave that one there, Michaela? Is that all right? Sorry, Department of State Growth, but... Okay. So I'm going to ask a few questions of our panel and then we'll hand over to you for audience questions. So to start with, we have the usual tell us a bit about yourself question, but I've asked the panellists to pre-prepare this answer with a focus on their experiences here at the university and how this place perhaps influenced their career. And I also asked them to touch on some of the connections and friendships that they've maintained as a result of their time studying here. So we might start with you, Fraser.
Right, okay, that's on. So I didn't prepare anything. I've been away for the last few days, and so this is all kind of off the cuff, I guess. But the university's been like a really, our career, well, my career started at the university. It's where I met my business partner, Andy. And it's when we started actually working. We were at uni together, and we started doing jobs when we were at the uni for the uni. The uni was one of our first clients as well. So, you know, there's a really strong connection there, you know, between what we're doing now and where we got started, which was actually while we were here studying journalism. I guess as far as Tasmania goes, you know, my original plan, I was in the UK during 2008 during the financial crisis, and it was really hard to get a job. I was unemployed, and I was watching a lot of Attenborough documentaries, like a lot of Attenborough documentaries. And I thought, you know, I should really stop working in bars and doing jobs I didn't really like, and sort of focus on and trying to achieve something that I actually enjoyed doing. And I thought, look, if I could get some sort of job anywhere between where I was at the time and working on wildlife films, I'd be pretty happy about that. So I came back to Tasmania always with the intention of leaving again and moving to Bristol, which is the sort of the worldwide hub of wildlife filmmaking. And anyway, I never ended up moving back. I managed to you know, get some really great opportunities here that I probably would have never got if I had taken that path. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that, but you know, that not being in the centre of things sometimes gives you opportunities that aren't available to people who are in the centre of things. And I think that's one of the great things about Tasmania. We sort of sit out here, you know, on the edge of the civilised world, I guess, and and you get to see and experience things that people in other countries and other places would absolutely love to see and experience. And you know, that's, I guess, why the tourism industry is, you know, has been growing the way it has, and why more and more people are realising that. I wish people would stop telling people how great Tasmania is. Like it's, you know, I like going to the beach and having no one on it. But yeah, it's definitely, you know, it's played a huge role in you know, what I've done since leaving university. Yeah. Was that good? Was that all right? Oh, great. Thanks.
You millennial. Zoe.
Good job. My study at UTAS made me realise that I wanted to tell stories. it's probably because I was doing economics and arts, and I just wanted to be an economist, and my best subject actually was econometrics, which is weird now because I can hardly add up. And so I think that made me realise, so I was doing arts as well, and I just did that as a side thing because my mum said, oh, you should just definitely do a double degree because that will definitely get you a job. And it was actually the thing that I was doing just to keep my mum happy that is what I ended up following through with on my career. And so I really think that going to UTAS was great for me. I've worked with a lot of people who went to unis elsewhere, especially places like RMIT, which have a super swish, really hard to get into journalism course. But working at UTAS, studying at UTAS gave me opportunities, like you were saying, that I wouldn't have been able to get at those bigger universities, I think. And then following through on that, working at the Examiner, working at the ABC, I was covering stories, I was dealing with people, I was getting experience I would have never have gotten in a metro newsroom in Melbourne or Sydney. So, yeah, I think, like you, our Tasmania's size is both its best asset and sometimes can be its worst asset. But tapping into that opportunity is really key and has helped me get to where I am now in my career. I honestly believe I wouldn't be doing what I am doing now and wouldn't have been able to get the jobs and the experience I am getting now if I hadn't had started my career at university down here, working at Edge Radio, for instance. That's where I got my love for radio, and then working in the media space in Tasmania. So, yeah, that's my story. Yeah.
Thanks, Zoe. Amy.
Okay, thanks. So as you may have guessed, I did a lot of degrees, and that was really because I loved the university lifestyle and loved being here, and UTAS was great for me. And I've been really lucky in my career that everything I've done has just been about doing what I love and immersing myself in art, and it's just happened to work out really well. But a couple of things that UTAS has given me that were really good. During my honours year, I was lucky enough to receive an internship at the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery with the Principal Curator of Art, Jane Stewart. And that was a really nice way to glimpse inside the museum, do research based on their collections, and see what it was like to be a curator. So that was a great opportunity. And then following that, I was invited to teach a summer school unit called Picturing the Wilderness. And it was one of my favourite units that I did as a student a few years earlier. So that was really great, and that led me to learn that I loved teaching and I loved sharing stories about art and getting people inspired and passionate about art. So that was really great, and I continued my studies and did a PhD because it allowed me to keep teaching, casually tutoring and lecturing at the university, at the art school. And then after that, my husband and I, as you saw, graduated at the same time and started just applying for jobs everywhere. And I was given the opportunity to take up a lecturing position in Darwin, and we didn't know anything about Darwin and pictured it as this red, hot, dusty kind of town. And we're really amazed when we got there how beautiful it was, and we were hit with a wave of humidity. It was the wet season and incredibly tropic and bright green and really spectacular thunderstorms and things. And it was a great place to teach because I had small, really culturally diverse classes and a really beautiful tropical gardens around the campus, which was spread out. So that was an amazing opportunity. And then we decided to come back primarily for family reasons, to be closer to family. When our daughter Emma was about 8 months old, we came back for Christmas and saw how happy she was and made that decision to come back the following year. So we made an adventure of it, and we actually drove back with Emma, who was then 10 months old. We drove back through Central Australia, did it slowly over 3 weeks and visited as many regional arts centres as we could and really experience it. And then drove along the Great Ocean Road and got the spirit back. So that was a really exciting, challenging, but really fun thing to do. So that's worked out well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Luke.
Hello. I started at UTAS doing arts law, and then I quit law and started doing arts economics because I didn't get into law. And then decided that I then started doing philosophy because I heard Bruce Lee did it. And then I quit that because I wanted to teach. So I moved to Launceston and went to the University of Launceston and started doing teaching for 2 years. And then I quit that. And I went back to UTAS in Hobart and did economics and arts with public policy, and then did that. So all up I was at uni for 7 years, and then got a Bachelor of Economics and Arts, and then got a job in with my economics degree, and then I quit that and did comedy. So very standard. So I'm grateful to the uni for hosting Raw at the uni bar, which got me into comedy. So thanks for that. Because if the university bar hadn't have hosted Raw Comedy, I wouldn't have done comedy, and I would probably have a job I don't know, actually. I don't know what I'd be doing. I guess I'd be doing martial arts films like Bruce Lee. So thank you to the uni bar. Thanks to the uni bar. And yes, that's been my story. Thank you. I'm selling a book afterwards about that really powerful journey I went on.
I was telling Luke when he got here how the uni bar's not really what it used to be.
Well, it wasn't even open. I was going to have a beer before I came in, and it wasn't open.
I'm not sure when it's open. We run exams in there now.
Is there there's an after party after this? Go to the uni bar. That's not true.
We'll bash the door down. Okay, so great. Can I ask you all now to think more broadly about Tasmania? And I think the general perception is that Tasmania has changed quite significantly over the last few years. How do you all see that Tasmania has changed? Can you share some of your reflections on the differences between the Tasmania that you knew when you graduated and the Tasmania and your experience of Tasmania now? These sound like really long-winded questions, but they did get them before the event, so don't feel too sorry for them. Perhaps thinking about both the challenges and the opportunities that are offered here in Tasmania. And Fraser, we'll
Okay, we're doing it
start
in
with you
order, are we?
again.
Okay,
Have you
cool.
prepared an answer?
No. I think so. I think the biggest difference that's happened with like Tasmania and places like Tasmania is the internet. You can live somewhere like Tasmania now, and you can work. At work we sort of deal with a lot of people interstate and overseas, and we can upload, download files and things, and like work collaboratively with these different people. And we don't have to, get off our butts. We can just sit there and sort of tap away at the keyboard. So that's one really, really big thing, I think. Like high-speed broadband, they put the NBN here, and they started at Midway Point. And I often wonder if that was like, they looked at a map and went, oh, Midway Point, that sounds like a good place to start. So we're lucky that we got that first, because without the NBN, like working in video and things, it would be really, really tough. So having those high-speed connections is really important. Also, I think, from my experience of living in places like London, I don't think I could move back to a big city. I think it's, commuting for 45 minutes to work in the morning, it's really hard. I walk to work, it's great. So there's things like that smaller cities, really offer that, that bigger cities can't or can't as easily. And then, also everyone talks about the Mona effect. I remember when I went overseas for the first time as, a naive 18, 19-year-old, you would meet other people and like other Australians in particular, and they'd say, oh, you're Australian, where are you from? You go, oh, I'm from Hobart. And you'd get all the, they would just mock the hell out of you, two heads, all that stuff that you hear, everyone's heard before. But now you say it, I'm from Tassie, and they're like, oh, that's so cool, check out my Blunstons, or like, they're wearing walking boots and, they live in Fitzroy or somewhere. So it's kind of cool now, I guess, or a lot more than it used to be. I don't know, you guys who live in other cities, can you confirm that it's cool? Is it cool?
Is the two-head joke still a thing here? Because when we started doing Rosehaven, I was really clear that we're never allowed to write a two-head joke. Like at no point does any character say two-head. Like it was like a big deal for me not to have that joke in the show. But is it still do people still do it?
I think maybe we've all got a chip on our shoulder rather than another head about that joke. Maybe that's why.
It used to really bug me when I go to the mainland. You got two heads? No.
It's the only real reaction you've got, isn't it? Like, not you personally. Like.
What's that? Oh no, sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, anyone who someone says that to. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's cooler now. It's cooler to be from Tasmania now. And I think people feel more proud in saying, I'm Tasmanian. And if you're ever in New Zealand, definitely say you're from Tasmania, because it's way better than saying you're from Australia. You get treated way better. I actually had someone on a ski lift say, "Oh, you guys get more crap from the Australians than we do."
I was in Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival, and two guys shoved me up against. I was in the toilet, and two guys shoved me up against the wall, and said it wasn't bad. I'm just like, this can't be good. And they started going, "You right, mate?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening right now." And he goes, "Hang on, where are you from?" And I said, "Tasmania." And he just dusts me off and goes, "Oh, my family's been visiting there. It was weird." And then let me leave the toilet. What's been your experience? Okay.
Even though I've lived in Melbourne for going on 3 years now, I am fiercely proud of being Tasmanian, and I go even deeper than that. I say I'm from the best part of Tasmania, the northwest coast, despite not living there. There you go, see? So when you're on tour groups and things like that, and they say, "Oh, where are you from?" I roll my eyes at all the people who say Melbourne, Sydney, and I'm like, Tasmania. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing that, which I think's a bit weird. But anyway, I live in Fitzroy, and I can definitely confirm that every second hipster has been to Dark Mofo or Mofo. And I'm weirdly also happy that they like Tasmania, but also I feel like they don't know the true Tasmania. I don't want to be too much of a downer on this, but there's definitely been change in the cities, but going outside of that, I had a look at the Commissioner for Young People's report released just a couple of months ago, and teen pregnancies are still the highest in the nation. Our educational attainment rate is pretty poor compared to the rest of the nation, and I think that's something that really needs to be worked on. I don't know if someone's done a PhD on the Mona effect yet. Have they?
Dr. Kate Booth, had an article in The Conversation recently. She didn't do her PhD on the Mona effect, but Amy, do you?
I was going to say Adrian Franklin, who was here, but has now just moved to Adelaide. Yes, he did a book about Mona, and now he's currently researching the Mona effect. So The Making of Mona was his first book, and now he's working towards that book, The Mona Effect.
Yeah, right.
He left Tasmania though.
He did.
But it'd be really interesting to track how far that has gone outside of Hobart and Launceston and possibly a bit of Burnie. But
when
that's brought it down a bit, hasn't it?
When we first came down, because Rosehaven films outside of the city mostly, and I was really excited to show Celia Piccola, my co-star, that Tassie, but we went to New Norfolk to start filming. And the whole production day was held up because these guys came out and just kept doing doughies. And we had to wait for the smoke to clear before we could film. And luckily, the tyre came off. He broke his axle or something. But other than that, it's been really beautiful being back.
You should incorporate that scene into the next season, I think.
Should have taken it. Just for me, the Mona effect is a huge thing in terms of art, and living in Darwin was really interesting that suddenly Hobart kept being mentioned as somewhere that everyone desperately wanted to go to see the latest exhibition at Mona, and to go to Dark Mofo and those kind of events. So that's really quite exciting and made me very proud to be Tasmanian and to have seen Mona develop as well. Mona definitely has made huge waves, and it's the reason that I've got my job at the moment as well. So the Hadley's Art Prizes is one of those direct things that's flowed on from the Mona effect, as Don Neal, the hotel owner's way of giving back to the art community.
I've got a couple of friends staying here at the moment. They're actually up there. Hey guys. But they actually, so they were meant to be going to Mona today for the whole day, and one of them has been before. He's got his brother with him this time, and they found out Mona was closed. Devastated. So they actually rebooked their flights for another day. I think they've got a meeting in Sydney or something soon. So they've pushed their trip out just to go to Mona. Yeah.
Has it still got the poo room, the room that has a machine that makes poo?
Yeah, everyone mentions the poo.
Sculptor. Yeah. Cloaca. That's all I had. That was my only question. Thank you.
That was your answer to question 2?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. I just find it's a great room. I'm not mocking it. I like to see how it works. Yeah, it'd be a funny machine to put in someone's bedroom as a prank. It's a weird tangent.
They do actually sell memorabilia. Wim Devoyle, the artist that does that, does sell vac-sealed poos and things. So there you go.
Popsicles and.
That was your answer? Yeah, good. Okay, just checking. Okay, question 3. Amy and Fraser, you've both come back to live and work in Tasmania. So what advice would you give to other young people who might be thinking of coming back to settle in Tasmania but haven't quite made that decision? Amy, we might start with you.
For me, from my perspective, it's a really great way. It's a great place to raise children, to have a family, and everyone really knows that anyway. But it really is. You can do things all year round. And I think Hobart is now a really vibrant city. It doesn't have that dull winter period that it had. There are cultural events and festivals and things happening all year round. So I think it's a good time to be in Hobart.
Fraser?
I think if there are people who are thinking from moving, a lot of young Tasmanians, I guess, want to leave, and that's fair enough. If you grow up here, the rest of the world seems like a really long way away. It's something you sort of experience through TV and when you're on holiday. And then often they'll move to Melbourne or Sydney or internationally. Coming back here, sometimes you're surrounded by your family and friends if you've grown up here, so that's always really great. 2, if you're in Melbourne, Sydney, New York or London or somewhere else, you're competing with all the people in those places for jobs. And, I think if you can come back here, if you can see what's happening in those other places, that's fantastic. And then you take that and come back here and sort of use that, it can be really, really good. You can sort of make your own thing. It's a very forgiving place to try things out. You can try, to do different stuff, and if you fail, or if you, don't do it perfectly, it doesn't matter, because there's not like some, hard-nosed sort of someone else in that industry who's going to crush you because of it. People are generally pretty supportive and pretty friendly, and I think, that's certainly been my experience coming back and working for myself. It's been great. It's been really, really good.
I think that friendliness is really interesting. Zoe, you were on ABC Radio yesterday with Barras, and I think you were both talking about how sometimes when you're in Melbourne and you're walking down the street and people smile at you, it actually turns out they're from Tasmania a lot of the time. So I think we're known for our friendliness, I think.
It was one of the things I was most worried about when I was making the decision to move to Melbourne, I felt like a bit of a... I had a community, I had a house, I had a great job. I didn't really need to go. What were the benefits of this? And I just thought, whenever I went to Melbourne for a holiday, no one would look at you. It was busy. I'd get lost on the trams. It was always raining and then sunny and then freezing. And that was definitely something I was tossing up, whether or not I could live in a place that was much bigger and where I wasn't, makes me sound really up myself, a bigger part of this community. Like, how do you break into a community elsewhere when here in Tasmania, I am Tasmanian, I have a lot in I have heaps in common with my community. But now, I don't know if I will move back. It's when you get that distance and you see that it's actually not too bad and you can break into a community, and the community in Melbourne is very different to here. The diversity is amazing. There are some, experiences, people that I have met in Melbourne that I wouldn't be able to in Tasmania. My work, it's quite national focused at the moment, so it's good to be in those places where there are more human beings. So, I'm very much quite lucky as well in that living in Melbourne, I get all the benefits from that, but I can also eat my cake too because my family is still on the northwest coast. I, can travel down and see them and live, the best parts of being in Tasmania, having my friends around, having my family around, being able to go on amazing bushwalks and just be in a space that makes me feel comfortable and safe and at home. But I don't necessarily need to be there full time. So I think that's, maybe holds some people back sometimes in thinking that they are going to go to a bigger place and it's going to be hard work. Tasmanians are really friendly and nice, but there's a fair few of them over in Melbourne and elsewhere as well. I mean, my boss is from Don, just up the road, so, we're everywhere in a way.
Well, you jumped into my question, so I was going to ask you, but I'm now going to ask Luke the question. So, Luke, and I really want to use the line, so just bear with me.
Sure.
What would it take to get you to come back here full time? Has it ever crossed your mind or been on your radar? Can you really hack it on the mainland, Luke?
Is that is couldn't hack it that was something my friends and I used to say to each other when someone would move away, but is that common? Is that a common experience? I don't know. I don't know why I'm asking the audience. So just give everyone a mic. Everyone come up. But did you guys have that as well? I had a mate come back from Europe and kept their visit secret because they didn't want to. We had a going away party for them, and then they were back a month later, and she kept it secret. And then I saw her at the supermarket, and she's like, "Don't tell anyone I'm back. I'm not ready to." Telling me that I couldn't make it over there. But I don't know. It's hard to come back now just because the comedy scene in Melbourne Comedy Festival and that sort of thing. It's so I think I'm just going to go straight to Hollywood. Just want to get in one of those Marvel movies. No, I'd come back. It's actually easier to come back now. Well, I come back every 3 months for 3 months for Rosehaven. But if you're I don't know how many people want to be in comedy here or in creative, but it's a little hard. You can do it in Tasmania. I've got friends here who do it. You just need a way in. Like Finn Crockemeyer, I don't know if anyone's heard of him, but he's an international playwright and he lives here. So you can make a living in Tassie now, and it's not hard to do. As long as you've got that in outside of Tassie to. For example, the ABC or any international filming body. But it's a terrible answer to a question. I would come back if I got a free house, free car, and an exhibit in Mona that was dedicated to me at all times. Not the per room. I think about it. I don't know though. At the moment, I like living in Melbourne, and I'd like to maybe try living in another country for a while. It's on my radar. It depends on. I think it fluctuates depending on how good I'm getting along with my parents. Because if I come back here, I have to visit them. Are they here? Are you guys here?
Are they here?
Do you guys come?
Here?
Oh, they are.
Oh, they are.
So, but once I've finished my therapy, I'll be back and we'll be. No, it's fine. Hi guys, thanks for coming. So yes, I would come back. Is the short answer that terrible? Sorry.
Louise, so you've actually brought production down here.
Yes.
And I know a few people who work on Rosehaven, and it seems like it's been a really great thing for the TV and film industry, or people who work in that area down here. And there's been other films that have been shot down here recently. What does that play in? How does that play in with this question?
Just on that, did anyone watch Arctic Blast? Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
That film about that cold front?
Yeah.
Man, that was amazing.
The guy from Stargate.
Yeah, the guy from Stargate, the doctor from... If anyone doesn't know, there was this film in Tassie called, I think it was called Arctic Blast, which is also I think it's also a Gatorade flavour. And it was about this cold front that came through, and as soon as you touched it, you froze. Was that right?
Yeah, something like that. Were you in that?
You were a scientist, obviously. Is that possible? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, totally possible.
It's possible. Okay.
Yeah.
So look forward for that.
They call it a polar vortex.
Yeah, sorry. You were talking about how to bring the production down.
Yeah. Do you think? Do you see that there being growth there? Is there more opportunity there than there was when you started?
Yeah, I don't know how much. I mean, Rosehaven's definitely helped, I think, but I think Kettering incident was probably the big one. I think it was Van Diemen's Land, and then Kettering incident, and Kettering incident was. I think over 20 million or something like that. It was a huge budget for this, and then it was really well received. So we were kind of piggybacking off that. We had to digitally repaint a house because one of our opening shots was a Kettering incident house, so we had to paint a different colour. So we were like, bloody Kettering incident. But yeah, I don't know. There was never anywhere else we were going to film because Tassie's... One thing I like about Tassie is I feel like when you think of rural Australia, you think of flat and you think of desert, and rural Tassie's green and hilly, and like if you wanted to, you could film a low-budget Lord of the Rings here, or a high-budget. But I don't know. It's kind of a lot of the compliments. Our cinematographer was from New Zealand, and he was saying how Tassie's great because you can just point the camera anywhere and it's beautiful. So, and also it can. I think with Rosehaven we've tried to make it feel like it's a small town that could exist anywhere on Earth. And Tassie's got that sort of. I don't know if it sounds lame, but it's kind of got like a otherworldly feel, or like you could be anywhere on Earth right now. I don't know if it's if that's a compliment or not, but I've always felt that about Tassie. Like it feels like everywhere.
An otherworldly feel that's anywhere on Earth. That seems kind of...
That's a terrible sentence. I failed law.
Like an alien planet then.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Tassie because it's you can be in the city and then you only have to drive half an hour and you're in the forest. Like I grew up in Glenorchy and Chigwell. And in Chigwell, you're in the suburbs, and then you just go maybe 10 minutes down the road, and you're literally in it's just forest and winding roads. So there was never anyone else. We were always going to film Rosehaven here. There was nowhere else we even considered. I forgot what the question was. Sorry.
I think you'd answered it. That's all right.
Okay. A final question from me before we'll hand over to the audience. So, given your experiences since you've left this place, University of Tasmania, what advice would you give your younger self? And it might be the same advice perhaps that you might give to some of our graduates who are about to graduate next month in December. Fraser, we'll start with you.
Buy shares in Google, Facebook and Amazon. That would be my advice. No, it'd be to... let your plans change, you don't always see opportunities and things that come up down the road. I mean, I think from listening to everyone's stories here, it sounds like nobody, if you asked us when we were younger where we'd be now, no one would have predicted where they are. Like everyone's path has been, winding all over the place. So I think that's probably the advice I give myself. Just, I guess it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but trust yourself that, you'll make the right decisions. Yeah.
Zoe?
I would also say back yourself in, and also really recognise the opportunities that are here. And yeah, we are a small place, and people might give us a hard time about having two heads or being from Tasmania, but there are so many opportunities as well because of those exact reasons, not because of the two heads thing, but you know, as you were talking about before, it's good to network. It's possible that your auntie or uncle might know someone who might know someone. Use it, do it, whatever you can to get as much opportunity, experience under your belt as you can.
Amy?
I think just do what you love, no matter what anyone thinks, and just don't worry about the future.
That's a good one.
Stole mine. Yeah, my specific advice to people at uni is that when you finish, you'll have a degree and you'll feel like you've spent a lot of money and you spent a lot of time getting it, but it's not necessarily... It's not a waste if you spend a lot of time doing one thing and then you swap over. Your only job is to find what you like doing. So I know I spent 7 years... I've never given more money to an institution than university, and I haven't used any of it. But it's not a waste, because coming here and doing the degree made me realise what I did want to do, which is your whole life's purpose is just to find what do I want to give back. So, you know, no matter what you have done in the past, as long as you end up in a place where you like what you're doing, then anything prior to that's been a waste. And it's and you might say at that point, oh well, I wish I'd discovered it earlier. But no, because this is what it took to get you to that place. So don't feel like you're tied to your degree, or if you don't necessarily use it in the way you thought you would, it's a waste. Like old paths are fine. And believe in yourself. I don't know how to finish. I was trying to think of a profound thing to finish with, but I couldn't think of one in time. So it comes to me afterwards. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've finished our questions for which our panellists were meant to prepare for early, which is good because it means we get more time for audience questions. Now, there are some rules. I am a veteran of these events, not sitting up here but running them, and so these are my rules for tonight. Number one, I'm going to select who's going to ask a question in the audience, and I'm going to take my cue from Jeanette up there in the green and Nick up there in the pretty floral dress, because they have a much better idea of who put their hand up the first than I do. Rule number 2 is, if you are chosen, please can you wait for the microphone to get to you so that we can hear your question, and so that the people who are watching on live stream can hear as well. And finally, rule number 3, and this is the big one, we want just one question. We don't want musings or long statements that ultimately lead to your question, and we really love short questions so that we can have as many as possible. So they're the rules. So can we start with Jeanette?
I was born in Hong Kong, and I have worked in 5 cities in two different countries. Actually, maybe you can call Scotland, Wales, and England 3 different countries. So this is my 5th country. Do you think that people actually should try moving around after 3 or 5 years?
You met my criteria. It was touch and go there for a minute. I was about to say, but good, well done. Okay, Zoe.
I think that was a great question. So I was lucky enough to go on exchange to Denmark when I was 16 years old, and I think that totally shaped me as a human being, in that, like, I thought that I was too cool. I thought Tasmania was not that great, too cool for school, just a bit bored, and then I went over to this completely different country, and yes, I learned how to drink beer, but I also learnt how spectacular this place is, and it just really, it's why I'm so proud of where I come from, and such an ambassador for Tasmania. So I think that, you know, it's a great idea for people, if they have the opportunity, to go elsewhere, get different experiences, because it's not necessarily you going somewhere doesn't mean you're shunning a place. It, for me, in my experience, it's actually built my love of my home. So, yeah, I think that if you've got the opportunity, do it.
Anyone else on the panel?
Yeah, I think it's like, I think it's crucial to visit somewhere, to travel around and I don't know how to word this, but go somewhere where you're not the majority, or where what you're used to is not the norm. I think it's really important, because even though you know it intellectually that there are places that are different than where you grew up, you don't really feel it until you're somewhere else and you're just like, oh wow, this is a whole society that's just fine doing things this way. But I think it just enriches every single part of your life. So I would highly recommend it. That was all I had. I don't know why I keep trying to end it in a weird way. It's weird holding a microphone and doing a talk but not having a punchline at the end of everything I say, and I'm still getting used to it. So,
Amy, did you want to?
I just completely agree with everything that Zoe and Luke said. I think it's very valuable to go away and travel, and yeah, it really enriches your perspective of Tasmania and your love for this place, and it's a really great life experience. So the day-to-day living elsewhere as well as travelling is really valuable.
Fraser?
I think something that we've all been assuming that everyone thinks Tassie's great as well. And, you know, we all think Tassie's great, and I assume probably the majority of the audience probably does as well, because it is, and we're right. But there are, you know, Tassie's probably not for everyone. You know, I've had friends who I went to school with, or, you know, went to university with, who have left, and they're doing great. You know, they've moved to different countries or different cities, and, you know, they have new lives and new friends, and, you know, they're really, you know, thriving over there. So, you know, I guess it's also down to the individual as to what city is right for you, you know. There are a lot of great cities in the world, and they're all really different. So, you know, I think maybe you've just got to keep looking if Tassie isn't for you. I'm sure there's somewhere that is, you know.
Nick?
I'm an old bloke. I started out in Burnie and come to UTAS, and then got to teach and do my PhD in UNSW. And then moved to Canberra and was a housing consultant all over Australia, making some money. Then I thought I'll go back to Tasmania, but it wasn't easy. So the story is, get out of Tasmania, but don't ever expect to come back easily. And I put that down to the people that run Tasmania are always...
I think he's breaking your rules.
Yep.
sorry, keep going.
Thanks, Luke.
It's my dad.
Luke's
yeah, don't expect to come back easily, because, you know, throughout the public servants, throughout the gentry, all of that, they'll block you.
That's a great question.
Keep going.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It wasn't a question,
Zoe,
was it? I don't think.
Yeah.
Was that a question? No.
Did you?
Thanks for
Do you
coming.
want to say anything, Zoe? No. Take it as a comment.
You can fill that one.
Oh. Jeanette, have you got someone over there?
I was going to ask whether you feel that Year 12 leavers with excellent marks who are offered opportunities at other universities that may see themselves as more prestigious, what advice would you give them?
So the Year 12s who got really good marks, leaving, deciding that they want to go to a university more prestigious.
Yep.
Like, I'm skipping UTAS, going straight to Harvard. Just send him a tweet. And what was it? And what was the question?
Should young people who
should they go to Harvard or go to
Year
UTAS?
12.
Yeah. So. Is that the question?
Maybe you're not being paid, you can be honest.
I think as far as where to go in uni, I think if you can go to a uni that is also the location you want to live, then do it. But I think ultimately, and I don't know, but I assume that it's more about how you perform at the uni as opposed to which place you go to. I don't know if that's completely true or not. I don't know if there are some unis that places just blacklist or not, but I feel like as long as I mean, you probably know this better than me, but I think any uni's fine. I don't know. What am I talking about? I'm a stand-up comedian. You got a PhD. I'm sorry.
I think if you're happy here and you have your friends here and your family and you want to stay, you shouldn't feel pressured to move. And I think you can be ambitious here and seek opportunities. And yeah, I would hate for people to feel like they had to leave if they weren't happy to.
I think it's also about what they want to study. And if, UTAS is good at that, I don't know why you want to do like climate science anywhere else other than here. That's something to take into account. From my personal experience though, I think that the size of the classes and things like that really helped me in the journalism side of things. But it's also about where you want to live. Like, it's a pretty great place, easy to get around. I was a bit boring. I didn't really do any of the society stuff. I was too serious. But was that good? Yeah. I don't know. The society stuff? Yeah. The nightlife? Uni bar?
Yeah, it's got a cool logo. It's got that lion.
Fraser?
Look, I think if you want to go to another university, go to another university. I think, as much as I loved UTAS, I guess it's similar to the answer I gave before. It took me 2 goes to love it. The first time round I didn't love it, but the 2 times after that I loved it. I sort of started with graphic design, and I guess like Luke, I changed my mind and decided I wanted to travel instead of go to university. And at the time, it was really, it was a decision that worried me and it worried my family, and at the time, a lot of people were saying, what are you doing? It's kind of, you're 2 years into a degree and you're like bailing. But it turned out, like, now I can look back and say that was great, a great thing, because I wouldn't be sitting here if that hadn't happened. And it's like any kind of decision like that. I can't remember who said it, but there's not really a wrong path if you end up somewhere that is right for you. And maybe that's UTAS, maybe it's not. I hope it is, because I have really great memories of it, and I'm sure for a lot of people it will be. But if you get offered a really great spot and it's something you always wanted to do and you've been trying really, really hard to get that, I think, give it a go. If that's what you want and that's what you've been striving for, then, you can always come back.
If you want to be a wizard, go to Hogwarts.
It's good advice.
That's otherwise go to UTAS.
I think that's what I was getting at, really.
Nick, have you got one over there?
Hi, my name's Gina. My question is mainly directed at Fraser and Amy, but I'm interested in anyone's views. Tasmania is undoubtedly having a moment and is cool right now, but we know that trends come and go and our time of being cool will end. And it's the things that endure that really determine the quality of living in a particular place. What is the one thing you would never change about Tasmania, and what's one thing you would change about Tasmania going forward?
Good question. I think, did you direct that at Amy and Fraser first, but happy to take answers from anybody?
The car park at Bruny Island. I hope it stays gravel forever. No, I don't know. I really like there's like, I think, you're talking about that once you get out of the cities, that not a lot has changed in, the past however long, in 10 years or whatever that distance of time has been since people have noticed change. And you see cranes in the city now. There's a great video, you can look it up on YouTube, that's like Welcome to Hobart or something. It's like 1960 something it was produced, and a lot of you have probably seen it. But when I first saw that, I realised that I hadn't seen it, like all the buildings, there was no new buildings since that video was made. And now there's like new buildings popping up everywhere, and it's really, really great. And I think it would be a shame if that was if that development in the city of Hobart was stopped. But, then you go to, and this is a really divisive thing for many people who really love the wilderness, and I don't know if there's any bushwalkers here, but, it's often a debate that crops up, and that's wilderness development. And I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine in Brisbane, and I do a lot of caving, and we were talking about caving. He's a glowworm specialist. That's his thing. He loves glowworms and he studies those. So he comes down here and he goes into our caves. But a lot of the caves that we go into are really, really hard. That he's in his probably 50s or something like that, and he can't go to those places even though he would love to. And so we got into this subject of wilderness development. And for me, I kind of feel like you have to earn it. Like if you want to go and see some of those beautiful places, like the Lake Jeeves thing is a big thing at the moment. Like they want to put in an eco-tourism retreat or something there at Federation Peak. And I've never been there. I think I would probably die if I tried to get there. But I don't want them to make it easier for me. If I'm going to go there, I want to earn my trip there, and I want to feel like when I get back, I want to be able to tell everyone, I was covered in leeches and I got ticks, and check out this massive cut on my arm or something. I don't know. But that wildness is something that once you lose it, it's really, really hard to get back. Once you tame the wilderness, you can't untame it. You can let it go feral, but it never returns to its former state. So I'm not anti-development in wilderness areas. I just think you've got to be so careful, because once it's done, it's done. It can't be undone.
Amy?
Well, my mind instantly went to a similar kind of thing about development, and I love that Tasmania is really growing in terms of art and building and becoming this wonderful cultural tourism destination, but I am also concerned about high-rises, and I don't want it to become one of those big high-rise cities, and I don't think that, I hope that won't happen. I think Tasmanians as a whole also want to keep it as a kind of quieter, special place, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what does happen with that.
Something to keep?
Yes.
Yeah? Keep low buildings.
Oh, yes.
Something that you're not so keen on?
Oh, yeah, well, that's what I'm not keen on the developments, and I hope that...
Got it.
Yeah, sorry, I probably didn't answer that very well.
No, that's my fault, not yours.
I hope the art keeps growing, but I hope the city itself doesn't become a mega high-rise kind of place, really.
Zoe?
I don't really have anything to add. I think there's just a very fine line about, like I said before, the best and the worst thing about our state is that its size and its population. So, it's just that inevitable and constant public debate, I suppose, we Tasmanians tend to have about development, also, industries, where we're going forward. I think that we do quite a good job of that. From a media point of view, it's quite heavily scrutinised, and this state is well serviced by the media, 3 papers and the ABC and all the radios. So, I hope we don't lose that either.
Luke?
I remember the Cadbury Chocolate Factory. You used to be able to grab them off the conveyor belt, and you could jump in a vat. I don't know, and I get annoyed. I haven't done it in a while, but it seems like you get a lot less free chocolate now. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that changed. And as far as things to keep, I'd keep. Was that the other side? Things you want to stay as they are. One thing you want to change, one thing you want to keep the same. Is that right? Everything else. So get that Cadbury's Chocolate Factory to more chocolates. Back to it. Keep everything else fine. I'm not sure. I think I really answered that question well. I hope it's recorded. Yeah, it's all. I'm sorry.
Waiting for the punchline. Jeanette?
I'm not from Tasmania. So I am from Sydney and then Bristol and then Melbourne, and I moved to Tasmania because I thought it was pretty trendy, which has not felt like Melbourne in a while, so sorry. My question to you is, what's the threat of mainlanders apart from development? Because there does seem to be that divide. We might have created it with that two-headed jokes. I'm sorry on behalf of everyone else, but why do you think there's this weird tension between the mainlander and the Tasmanian, and what can we do to fix it?
Just speaking from my own experience, I don't think there is much of a tension between the mainland and Tassie. I used to think there was, but when I moved to Melbourne and started doing comedy, Tassie is not the butt of many jokes. There's not a lot of... We're actually kind of regarded as quite cool up there. I think there's definitely... That Mona's definitely helped that, but Adelaide cops a lot of abuse from comedians. Adelaide is kind of the scapegoat at the moment, I think, but as far as Tassie and mainlanders, I don't know. I always thought there was some sort of competition, but when I was now I'm in Melbourne, I'm living there. It doesn't seem to exist anymore. Has your experience been the same?
Yeah, people love us. Like I said before, I actually get a bit upset that they want to come down here so much. Sorry, tourism industry, but I think that. Maybe in the past, like when I was in Denmark, for instance, maybe it was because we were younger as well, all of the other exchange students from the rest of Australia, I was the only Tasmanian there, they called me the DAG, because Tasmania hangs off the bottom island, which was quite fun. But now they've all visited and they love it and probably want to move here. Maybe we don't like mainlanders because they're pushing up our property prices. In doing my research, I did all of my research before coming here.
Well done, Zoe.
Apparently, rent is high. The second in Hobart is the second highest after Sydney, compared to how much of your income you have to spend on rent. So I think we should blame the mainlanders for that. And why else should we hate mainlanders? Oh, sorry, that wasn't the question. That's all I've got.
I was at a conference recently, last year, and I was talking to a guy who was living in, I can't remember the town, it was like a small town somewhere, maybe, central Tassie, and he was saying how he was some documentary idea. It wasn't a terrible idea that he was trying to get off the ground. He was trying to make a documentary in this town. And he said he'd been there for 15 years and he was still considered an outsider, and he had enough and he left. And that's not the first time I've heard that. I think, people who come into Tassie from other places in Australia, maybe it is a bit to do with having that chip on our shoulder about being the butt of jokes for so long. People don't forget. I think maybe it has got... So there, sometimes I think there is a bit of animosity towards mainlanders who move down here. It's kind of, I don't know, it's a bit like being in a exclusive club or something, I guess. I guess it kind of sucks too. It's pretty mean. It's not very fair, but I guess hopefully it changes. I know I'm definitely guilty of it, so I can put my hand up and say that.
Amy?
Oh, I thought I might just make a comment about that difference and that kind of separation. I remember a moment in Rosehaven where Celia talks about the mainland going back to Australia, and then you say, oh no, the mainland. Australia is this whole other place. And as a kind of follow-on from that, the winner of this year's Hadley's Art Prize was Peter Munkuri from a very remote area in South Australia. And we flew him down for the exhibition opening, and he flew over the ocean, and then he asked when we arrived, are we still in Australia? And I thought that was a really interesting thought as well, that being this island state, that we do seem to be this different kind of place. And I think a lot of Tasmanians do grow up here, and one of the best friends I made in Darwin was actually someone that grew up in Tasmania. So that was really nice, having that connection back to home and sharing those stories about Muirs and all of these familiar places and things. So yeah, I think it can be quite a close-knit community here.
I don't think you'd find it's different to anywhere else that's a small place like Tassie either, that's fairly isolated. I think, you're always going to have that kind of mentality in places worldwide that are like this.
Wasn't there a movement here at one point, or am I remembering this incorrectly, that Tassie wanted to be independent? They wanted to be their own country? Is that right?
Actually, the guy, this man up here, did he refer to Tasmania as a country before? Okay.
Was that a real thing?
I got a bit excited.
Am I making that up? They wanted to separate themselves. Was that real?
No, there was something
WA
where we wanted to be
definitely did it.
tax exempt or something,
Tax
wasn't there? We
exempt.
were going to be a tax haven.
There was something about Tasmania that was going to... I can't remember what it was, though. Yeah.
Well, I'm from Adelaide, so I am used to being the butt of jokes. When I first moved down here in 1996, people were really, really confused as to why I was moving to Tasmania. And now when I tell people that I live in Tasmania, they're really jealous. And a lot of them have been on holiday here and they want to move here and live in Tasmania. Nick, did you have one? Because I've got one, if I can have one. That very attractive man there with the blue shirt on. Yep, you're the one? Oh, sorry. That's my husband.
Sorry, that just goes to the myth that we actually are all related. I'm the Dean of the Business and Economics School, and I wanted to thank Zoe and Luke in particular for making excellent use of the economics parts of their degrees. But I want to ask a question that sort of gets to that, and you've sort of alluded to it already, which is, does it actually matter what you study, or is it just the act of studying itself that's important? So I'll also point out that while I'm the Dean of the Business School, my PhD is in early medieval British history.
And there we go. I just think it's about learning. Yeah, it doesn't really... I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. We are at a uni event. But it's, moving away from Ulverston and coming to Hobart and learning how to live by myself and also get to uni on time and also to meet all these people that I've never met before and to write an essay and to think my own thoughts. That's what's so special, and it's quite a privileged thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I think studying's another way of searching for more knowledge of yourself. Like I find if I'd studied something and I found something I enjoyed studying, then I would learn more about myself or more about what I wanted to do. So I feel like, just the act of studying is good. I mean, there's the discipline of it, I suppose, but just, I don't know, to get excited about learning is I think it's one of the most important things you can do in life, if there's, just to cultivate a curiosity about things. I found studying for that purpose was huge.
Well, I'll just add to that. I think the cultivating curiosity thing is brilliant, but also from the art school perspective, cultivating creativity as well, and critical and creative thinking is really great. And I think university can be a good place to network, make friends, even if you change degrees a few times. But really about, learning what you love and trying new subjects, and it's really great.
Fraser?
I think I know my grandma gets really worried about my cousins when they're like chopping and changing degrees and things like that, and I sort of say to her, well, that's exactly what I did. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I tried all these different things, and spent a lot of money doing it, usually other people's money. I think that all of those things that I did have all come back to be useful in some way. They're not wasted skills, and you learn things that I think that having a broad skill set is a really good thing. I think that did you say at the beginning that arts and science never the twain shall meet? I completely disagree with that. I know you didn't mean it, but that's like a I think arts and science have they go great together. Like look at Da Vinci, for example. That's fantastic. Like, that's a great example of a mixture of arts and science. But if you can, mix different skill sets from different areas of knowledge, I think that's great. And I mean, having a really specific knowledge of something is great as well. You wouldn't want a doctor who didn't have a really specific knowledge of the human anatomy. But, you know, you can pull in things from other areas that you would never think should go together and create something new from those things, I think. So, yeah, I think, you know, studying degrees that are different to what you end up eventually doing is, you know, a good thing.
Jeanette?
Thanks very much. I really appreciate your views on things, and Zoe, you mentioned just the word privilege a minute ago, and so I'm curious to know what you would say to us if this auditorium was full of people who had a vague glimmer that they might want to study or they might want to travel, but through circumstance, through lack of support, through all sorts of things, they didn't know how to do that. Would your stories change? What would your advice be if we were people who had no association with the university, no association with further study or a desire to travel, but we just had this glimmer that we wanted something more? What would you say if we were those, I'm sorry I'm going on now, but if we were those people that Zoe you mentioned earlier, you know, who are in those reports, who haven't been affected by the Mona effect?
I think we'd have to, you know, sit a lot of grade 7, 8, 9 students down, and, you know, well, even starting earlier than that, and making sure that we are getting people to stay in our education system. We're spending millions and millions of dollars on it, and less than 50% of our students are getting their TCE. It's just not good enough. I'm not here to make political statements, but I just did. So it's about, you know, showing them where. I don't think my story would change. I just think it would be less about those latter years and more about why it is exciting, why it is good to go to school and to hang out with your friends and to, you know, talk about those opportunities of travel and the opportunities of, you know, just being able to be with your family and be in a healthy, safe space. I think, I mean, my story wouldn't change that much, but I would probably try and be talking about my earlier years. Yeah.
Does anyone else want to answer that one? Or shall we go on to another question? Jeanette, did you have another one? Oh, Amy, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, in Darwin, a lot of our students were remote. They were based in regional communities, and we put a lot of effort into online teaching and connecting with them. But to get those students engaged, a lot of lecturers would actually travel out to those communities and just talk to them from school age and kind of build relationships with them and show them the range of possibilities of the kind of things that they could do studying, and whether they moved to Darwin or whether they stayed where they were and had a go at doing the online courses. And I think that kind of online connection and network is really growing, and I expect it to in Tasmania as well.
Jeanette?
Hi, I've got a question about the culture of HECS debts is changing, and how young people now that are thinking of going into university education have got bigger obstacles than, say, I had, where I didn't have to pay back my HECS debt, and I could change. I could chop and change and do different degrees, and didn't have to pay it back until I was earning a certain amount of money, and that's all starting to change. And the way kids are now looking at, okay, if I've got to do this, if I'm going to get this huge HECS debt, I've got to pay it back sooner. So the freedom of being able to just float around and do this and try that is changing. And so, you know, I've got 2 daughters that are on the verge of doing that sort of thing, and they're saying, oh, well, it's all very well for you. You could go and do this. The options are changing. And I'm just wondering how you think that that's now going to affect young people going into higher education and the decisions that they have to make, rather than being able to be a little bit more free. Oh, well, I'll try that and move on, like Luke did that, didn't do that. Do you think that's really going to affect how they move into their further education?
I can probably answer that. So I went to uni first up pretty soon after I left high school, and you know, and you're right, it was such a privilege to be able to have that opportunity to kind of, try things out, I guess, and see what fit me. And obviously that's not available to everyone. But it's interesting. It's almost like when I went back to uni, I was like 28, I think. When I was there, I must have been like maybe 18, between 18 and 20, something like that. And the attitude of the students who I met, I don't know if it's to do with me being a mature age student when I came back and having a different attitude myself, but people were so much more focused. We sort of joked about the uni bar, not being as much of a, rager as it used to be. And maybe that's the consequences of people who are more focused on study. And it certainly seemed to be people were taking things far more seriously when I got back to uni as a 28-year-old than when I first got there as like a, young, in my early 20s.
Anyone else? Luke?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that and thinking about the question of privilege, and I was lucky. I was able to float around for a bit. I didn't have to pay back my HECS till later. I had parents who were supporting me. And what we've found, even when casting Rosehaven, was that a lot of people who go into the arts are people like me. It's hard to cast. There's not as large a pool of people from people who have had a different, tougher circumstances or less access because they often don't have the opportunity then to go into acting because it's hard. I was only able to do comedy because I went to uni, I got a job, and then I saved up a certain amount of money, and then I quit, and then lived off that for as long as I had to. And it's I don't know the answer. I don't know. I don't know what advice to give people who, because as much as I say, do what you want to do and follow what you love, it's hard. It's really hard. If you've got kids, if you've got a mortgage, if you've got people supporting you, you just don't have a lot of support yourself. And I don't know. We've been trying to. I guess what I've been trying to do lately is thinking about how I can reach those people who are in those sort of situations, and as I go through the industry, sort of help them or reach them, like the way we cast now or the way we put out auditions. But yeah, I don't know. It's I don't even know what my point is, but it is harder, especially like for example, if HECS changes, all of a sudden you've got to pay it off straight away. That's difficult to float around now, and it's a lot to ask a kid to say, you just finished school, what do you want to be forever? That's a hard decision to make, and a lot of people go their whole lives and they never work it out. So I don't know what I don't know what the solution is. It's a hard one, but I think we need to think about that in all these policy decisions. Is that it's a lot to ask someone who's just finished school. What do you want to be forever? And if you want to be this, then you've got to pay this much money. And I don't know what you. But I wish I had a way of fixing all this, but I don't. It's a great question.
Anyone else on the panel? I think we've got time for one more question. Jeanette?
Thank you. Perhaps this is a good last question. I've been reflecting on your title, Do I Stay or Do I Go? And it seems to me all four of you went. 2 of you came back. Do you think we should have had 2 more people on the panel who have stayed in Tasmania and have made a career in Tasmania?
Well, good question. We can't have 6 on a panel. It's completely unwieldy.
I think there wasn't the budget for couches, unfortunately.
Yeah. This is all we've got. That's a good question, though. That's a good question.
It is. I feel like I have friends that have stayed their whole lives here and been successful. So I don't think that you have to leave. And maybe, it would have been nice if one of us on the panel had have been an example of that.
Most of my school friends haven't left. Most of the people I grew up with are still here. I'm one of the few who did move, and it was kind of, in terms of comedy, it was difficult not to, just because the Melbourne Comedy Festival is kind of it's one of the largest comedy festivals in the whole world. So it was hard. It was the only reason I left Tassie really originally was because I was running out of jokes. And when I was doing comedy here, I kept having to do different jokes because the same people would show up. Or if I'm talking about an ex-partner, they're right there. It's I needed to go somewhere where I was a bit more anonymous. Couldn't joke about my parents because they'd be there as well, and if I talked to them afterwards, it was awkward. So that's why I left. But yes, that's a great question. I think you're right. There's plenty of success stories of people who've stayed here and are happy here and have made their living here. And I think it's important to travel and see it elsewhere, but I don't think you necessarily have to leave Tassie to quote unquote make it.
Maybe we'll have part 2, and we'll have a different panel next time, and you have to come back. You have to sit right there, and you can ask your question again. That brings us to 7:30 p.m, and it's time now to wrap up our event. And what a fantastic conversation I think we've had this evening, and I think we've all thoroughly enjoyed hearing from our 4 panellists. Can I ask you all to give a very warm round of applause to Zoe Edwards, Fraser Johnston, Dr. Amy Jackett, and Luke McGregor. I have just a few quick thank yous that I'd like to do. Thank you very much to the Department of State Growth for their support for this event. It's greatly appreciated, and we'll ask them for more money next time so that we can have some extra couches and some more people. Thank you very much to the alumni team, Michaela Lightfoot, Nicole Wilcox and Gilda Sorella, and to our events and protocol team, which is led by the inimitable Belinda Brock, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but in particular the team tonight, Jeanette Farnell, Pat McConville, Steve Stewart and Dave Otto. Can we give them a round of applause? And finally, please remember that the university's Alumni Program enables graduates to keep and renew contact with former classmates, colleagues and professional networks globally, and keep their connection to the university and to Tasmania. So wherever you end up, if you stay or if you go, please remember to keep in touch. Thank you very much everyone for being such a fantastic audience tonight, and have a great night. Thank you.